Good evening, people. It is the second half of June the 27th. I did go live early this morning, and maybe I'm here like 12 hours. Actually, it's a little more than 12 hours later. But I want to do the second half of this idea, the possibility that Kouri Richins might have she may have been in withdrawal. Her latest court hearing 5 days ago, I believe the 12th, no, 22nd. Yeah, 22nd. Um, that she may have been in withdrawal, and what we're seeing with her crying, perhaps she was actually just sick, and that the large amounts of fentanyl that she's purchasing may go lockstep hand in hand with the large amount of money that she has been spending in really strange and foolish ways. Um, and it would explain why she purchased more fentanyl even after Eric had died. So we also know this. He Eric Richins didn't just overdose on fentanyl. It was a massive amount of fentanyl. And I think most of us, if we were not familiar with fentanyl, we've heard, oh, it's so potent and it's so deadly, and we might underdose him, not knowing what we were doing. And in this case, it seems like she just went all out, like just went crazy, basically. So it would explain a lot of how illogical her behavior has been, the things that she's done, the liability that we've seen, her going on to this television program wearing a coat. Why would she do that? It's so strange. So so this is speculation on my part. The video from this morning you can go and see. I show the court hearing. I show where she's crying. Her attorney looks irritated and angry with her. Um, and I don't think she's just crying. I think she's sick. She looks more like she's nauseated and maybe vomiting. Um, and so what would happen if that's the case? Now, I would say, okay, so a lot of people are going to ask the timeline here. So Richins, Kouri was arrested on May the 8th of 2023, and her first court case, I believe, she was seen June the 12th. Um, for her for her detention hearing. And then that was June the 12th. So right at about 3 weeks. Hold on, I looked it up a while ago. So that was the 12th. So that's 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Okay, so it's right at about 20 days for that court date that she's seen looking what I think is ill. So I'm really comfortable with this timeline. Now, those of you that know about, well, if you've worked with addicts, if you've worked in detox facilities or treatment facilities, or you have a family member or a friend, a loved one who is dealing with addiction related to opiate medication, then you are familiar with the look. You are familiar with the various stages of withdrawal and how it all kind of unfolds, right? In a very predictable pattern. But the majority of people are more familiar with withdrawal from short acting opiates like hydrocodone or codeine, right? Oxycontin is a drug that became very, very popular because you could get a larger dose of opiates, but you would have to crush it in order to release the time release. It was very dangerous. You could actually overdose because it did actually have the full 12 hours or 24 hours of medication. And if you crushed it properly, then you could get that full hard dose with rapid onset. And so there were people that overdosed from it, not really understanding the medication and the body's ability to build up tolerance. And and so a lot of people that got addicted to OxyContin or Percocets or oxycodone, OxyContin is a long acting Percocet, basically. Um, and a lot of people got addicted to these very, very, very powerful opiates. And hydrocodone is also a powerful opiate, but not in the same class as Percocet, roxicodone, and OxyContin. These are pretty dramatic drugs that the majority of us, we're not really used to taking it, and if we, even doubled the dose, it could kill us. Hydrocodone is a little bit the accidental death profile is a little bit different. It's not quite as bad. Um, but make no mistake about it, roxicodone, hydrocodone, not hydrocodone. I mean hydrocodone, yes, but it's just a lower dose. Percocets, Roxys, and especially OxyContin, they're fairly notorious for overdose deaths. Now, a lot of people did get addicted to OxyContin, and for quite a while I hate to say they were easy to get, but there was a period of time during the early, when was it? I don't remember, maybe the early 2020s, maybe? I don't know. Um, there were a lot of these pill mills that popped up, and I guess there were some people that were buying it online. And so we had a huge epidemic of addiction to these drugs. It's now, those things have now been shut down. You can hardly even find just like a pain medication doctor that they're not even really prescribing. They want you to try to fix whatever is causing the pain rather than just covering it up. So we're in a much different landscape now than we were back then. But what did happen for a certain group is that they found out, hey, this is my drug of choice. I like the opiates. And so that it opened up when they shut down all access to prescription opiates, that just opened in just this huge door for fentanyl and medications like hydrocodone and Percocets coming in from other countries or gotten illegally from unscrupulous doctors and nurses and such. So the people that got addicted to this stuff, they liked it and they want to keep doing it. And so many of them became fentanyl patients. But what we saw a bit more in treatment and detox is we saw people that were addicted to OxyContin, and when they would run out of OxyContin, then they would turn to codeine or fentanyl or heroin, any opiate that would just stave off withdrawals, right? That was the main thing, was not to go into withdrawals. They hated it. It was a horrible feeling. And man, these people were sick. I mean, it was a sad thing to watch. So, I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, fentanyl is so expensive. And for people that are still getting access to medical grade opiates, if they're not getting enough to get them through their till the next refill, or what, I don't even think they call them refills, but if they're not getting enough to make it, then they'll turn to an illegal source to kind of hold them over, right? Till they can get their next pharmacy refill. So it wouldn't be surprising to me. Now, fentanyl's incredibly expensive. We saw how much money she spent when she bought these 15 or 30 tablets. So it's not exactly a drug that you could afford to feed your whole addiction. It would be far too expensive. She would be more likely to go ahead and make that step over to heroin. It's much cheaper and apparently easier to get. But heroin is one of those drugs that people feel like heroin's like crack. Heroin is like a poor person's drug, right? Or that it's shameful. And of course, if you're getting pharmaceuticals that come from, clean drug manufacturing places in the United States, then they convince themselves that they're not drug addicts. But, therapists, doctors, they explain to them, no, it is still heroin and hydrocodone and roxycodone. Even though there may be some subtle differences chemically in the makeup, the reality is that it is those opiate receptors that these drugs are binding to. And so you can't really play games and tell yourself that you're not using not heroin, but definitely an opiate, which is the same type of medication. But still, people are weird and they have their ideas, between drinking Dom Perignon versus drinking, Strawberry Hill out of brown paper bag. And if it's Dom Perignon in a Baccarat glass, then you can't possibly be an alcoholic, right? Because alcoholics drink Strawberry Hill out of brown paper bags. So that it's sort of this is the kind of like rationalization that you can hear from people that have these addictions to these medications. And so I wouldn't be altogether surprised if she was actually having an addiction problem. And that might explain, number one, how the hell did she even know who to talk to and say, hey, I would like to purchase fentanyl or hydrocodone or whatever. And then number two, where's all this money going? Why do you have such a flat affect? Why are you wearing a coat on national or on a local television show? It's very, her behavior is very odd. And why, this idea that she took out so many life insurance policies on her husband, where was that logic of, hey, I might be able to explain away one life insurance policy, but how am I going to explain away four? And then she turns around and takes them out on her children. And the fear, of course, among the family members voiced in court was she gonna go for one of the kids, right? Like Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. So this might give us a little bit of, insight into some of what she did. I still think I think it's clear that she dosed him. I think she killed him, right? I think there's no doubt about it. But there are some questions like, why did she buy more fentanyl after he's gone? So that's sort of what led me here. And then watching her in court, I thought, looking at her, I said, "Oh yeah, I've seen that before. I've seen the red nose," and I pointed it out in my other video. I've seen the red swollen nose and the gulping air to try to keep from vomiting, the watery eyes, the discoloration in skin, holding your your body because you're kind of cold. You're also kind of uh, the your hands are shaking a little bit. So she looks like she's in withdrawal to me. And there, I know that there's a lot of therapists and whatnot that come to my channel. So if you've worked with this population that I'm talking about, I would just be curious what your thoughts were. Did you think that she looked, well, like she was still in detox? All right. So her first court appearance was June the 12th, and that was a detention hearing. And this is a hearing where the judge denied her bail. Okay. And so then 10 days later, she's back in court for a status hearing. And it was during this June 22nd court hearing that she is crying and does look to be, quite ill. So the timeline on OxyContin, which is a long acting, powerful opioid, would actually fit into the timeline of her court appearances. So most people are just sort of not, I don't know that I have ever known anybody outside of a detox facility or a treatment facility. I'm not sure I've ever known anybody taking OxyContin long term. I know it does happen, and it used to happen all the time. But most that I have seen have been hydrocodone, which was a big one. Codeine was a big one, and Percocet, which is oxycodone. Again, it's powerful, but it's a short acting drug. So the majority of people are familiar with that withdrawal schedule. And basically, the withdrawal schedule is that for a short acting, is that within 4 to 6 hours after your last dose, that is when the early symptoms of withdrawal begin. And again, it prompts you to take another pill because you feel uncomfortable. Um, and then if you don't, then by about 12 hours after your last dose, now you really don't feel well. Like now you get it. You're like, oh, so this is what it feels like to be in withdrawal. And I have talked to more than one person who was really surprised at how withdrawal felt. Um, some people had gone 10 hours, 12 hours without their drug before securing more. But once you hit about 24 hours, moving into 36 hours, they can panic. They can be like, I am dying and I will kill you if you don't give me something to make this stop. So it gets pretty nasty pretty fast with the short acting um, opiates. However, it's a whole different ball game with long acting drugs like OxyContin. And it the hold on, what did I do to my shoot? This makes me so mad. Sorry, y'all. I messed up my. Hold on, just a second. I'm so sorry. got fumble fingers, you know what I mean? And I shut down my whole browser and everything. Sorry about that. Okay, so I should be back on my page. Yes. Okay, so there are many things that can go into the withdrawal timeline, especially with long acting opioids like methadone or Oxycontin or Suboxone. And the things that will interfere with predicting a timeline on a long acting opioid is this: how long has the person been dependent on it? That's number one. Are we talking about someone who has been taking it for 10 years and their body has completely acclimated and is no longer making their own endorphins at all? Is this a person whose body has grown accustomed to partial withdrawal and then they get their drug, and then partial withdrawal and they get a drug? Is this a person who is overweight or thin? People that are overweight and they're taking these medications, their withdrawals tend to last much longer. And the reason that their withdrawals tend to last much longer is because, with the especially noticeable in long acting opioids, is that their the half life is extended because a lot of the active metabolites are stored in the fat. And if for some reason they're not eating, they get sick, then their body will begin to burn those fat stores, and it will release additional levels of Oxycontin, which then throws them back into withdrawal. So it's a very weird kind of the withdrawal from a long acting opioid is a completely different illness than withdrawal from short acting opioids, although it's all still the same physiological cellular chemical process. It's complicated by long acting opioids are complicated by different issues, one being weight, another how long has this person been taking, another is how often are they dosing. Is this a person who is dosing an Oxycontin every 12 hours, or is this a person who's dosing every 3 days? And with a long acting like Suboxone or methadone, they could very well be dosing every 3 days. If they're not chasing a high, they're in pain management, or they got addicted when they were chasing a high, but now they're not wanting to be intoxicated, but they don't want to go into withdrawals, then they might very well only take a dose every 2, 3, 4 days. So it's complicated in terms of getting a really good timeline. With a short acting opioid, withdrawals will set in 4 to 6 hours after the last dose. By about 12 to 24 hours after the last dose, it's a rodeo at this point. You are not in Kansas anymore. And by about 24, 36 hours, you're looking for somebody to kill, or you're hoping, probably more accurately, someone will kill you. And the escalation of symptoms, most people don't know this, but they do change over the 72 to 96 hour peak. The symptoms change. You don't experience all. I think this is accurate. You don't experience all of the symptoms all at the same time. It seems to morph from one physiological process to the next. Like, you'll go through this period where you're just sneezing and sneezing and sneezing and sneezing. Yawning is an early symptom. Lacrimation or lacrimination. And then you'll go into the cold sweats. At some point, the cold sweats kind of go away, and then they're physically moving. They're not sleeping. They're just pacing. There's another period of this 96 hours where they seem to be sleeping way too much. And then they wake up and then they're wide awake and they're agitated and they're angry. There's a deep, deep, deep uh, just hopelessness, depression, horrible anxiety. And you've got to realize these things are not happening to people because, they're upset because they can't get their drug. This is happening. It's a physiological problem where the chemical reactions are in the brain. It's like they're on meth, amphetamine. The I don't know how I don't know how clinical I want to get about this, but the drug, the opiate acts on a certain drug. I'm sorry, a certain chemical in our bodies related to epinephrine, and epinephrine or adrenaline um, speeds you up, right? I mean, that's what methamphetamine is, right? Or methylphenidate. These are drugs that speed your body up. Okay. When you take opiates, however, instead of speeding you up, the opiates actually cause that particular chemical that speeds you up, causes that naturally occurring particular chemical to go away. The opiate addict will have less of a amphetamine type adrenaline chemical that is naturally occurring, but they will actually have less of it in their brain as a result of the opiate that they're on. Now, when the brain doesn't get that dose of opiate, guess what happens to the adrenaline? Oh, now it comes back. Big. Very, very big. So it's kind of a strange. If you know the neurology of withdrawal specifically from opiates, if you know the neurology related to that, it's so interesting to watch as these people cycle through this process, because for a while something seems to make them sleep a lot. And I don't think I can guess how long that was because I don't remember. I don't know. Maybe they get like 24 hours, 12, 24 hours of deep sleep. And then it hits with a vengeance and they're just move. I've seen them before laying in bed and they're just moving their legs like their legs don't stop. They're just like they're on a bicycle or something, right? Pacing the floor, just walking. Beating a pillow, just move it, like this compulsion to move that they can't control. So then all the horrible diarrhea starts, then the horrible nausea and vomiting, horrible crying and panic, and I mean, this is the beginning of withdrawal, right? This is when the brain is waking up going, hey, there's, you're going to dance, you got to pay the fiddler. And you've been living on very low adrenaline for a long time. And now we're going to wake you up. And it does. And they're overstimulated. Every part of the brain is overstimulated and they are in misery. It's like they're in cocaine withdrawal, right? So this is a process that in short-acting opiates will peak generally at about 3 or 4 days, and that's total hours, so about 72 to 96 hours. That's where it peaks. And then very gradually, each hour, it gets just a little bit better. There's no waking up and going, oh, look, I feel better. It's just a little less. And so I've seen people that would go through this process of withdrawal and they would get to that 90, 72, 96 hour marker. And then you would keep thinking, why are they still in such active withdrawal? Like their blood pressure is out of the roof and they're pacing and they're sad and they're, crying and angry and all these negative things. But I've seen that before go on as much as, like, I don't know, 110, 120 hours before you really discern, okay, maybe we're ramping down a little bit here. Maybe this is getting better. But I got to tell you, they will go months without sleeping. Months, MONTH with an S. It is fairly brutal. And so you got to realize that if this is what the short acting opiate timeline is, imagine the long acting opiates. It's hell on earth. Can we be honest? I've had people tell me before that they would have been much happier to go cold turkey off of their hydrocodone than to try to withdraw off of methadone. Same kind of complaints from what is that medicine called? Tramadol. That tramadol withdrawals, apparently they have a hard time with tramadol withdrawals. Same reason, it lasts forever. So with the short acting, they feel like I'm going to be really strong and really tough, and in a week I'll be over this and I'll be ready to move forward. That's not exactly what happens, because it can definitely be protracted, and there are going to be symptoms that are going to last 3 months, 6 months. The mood symptoms that come with opiate withdrawal with short acting can be even a year. So this is a new way of life, and you've got to have support. You've got to have a therapist. You've got to have someone that can hear you, not judge you, and help you learn what do you do when you can't sleep? What is the process to be as comfortable as possible and be accepting that last night you only slept 2 hours? But in a funny kind of way, opiate withdrawals, your body really doesn't need as much sleep because you've got a lot of energy, got a lot of adrenaline, and all that. So it's more important not to chase sleep and get frustrated. It's much more important to manage the anxiety. Target getting rid of the anxiety. Don't target trying to go into a deep sleep. So it's a very difficult process. Now, when you're talking about these long-acting medications, it is a whole different ballgame. It is very, very difficult. And so generally we say that the withdrawal symptoms can start 10 hours to even as much as 20 or 30 hours after the last dose. You got to remember, they're long acting because they have a long half-life. The medication stays in the body much, much longer than the short acting. So with short acting, you can go into withdrawals within about 4 to 6 hours. But with something like OxyContin, you may not even begin to feel uncomfortable for 2 days, right? It may even be the third, fourth, fifth day before you feel like, okay, now I feel bad. This sucks. And it can, they will tell you, withdrawal from OxyContin, it generally will start anywhere between 2 to 4 days after the last dose. But if someone has trained their body to only take the medication like once every other day or every third day, you may not really get onset for maybe even 6-7 days, because the body is aware of when it normally gets introduced, and it can kind of make its own supply of endorphins, which endorphins calm withdrawal symptoms. So they will generally peak at that same kind of 96 to 120 hours. But the peak is so much worse than the short acting. And then the protracted is generally as much as 20, 30 days, but even 40 to 60 days, you can still see people that were taking long-acting opiates, even 2 months into this withdrawal period, they can still be struggling and suffering terribly. Just not that acute, kind of just look, this nausea and vomiting is it's like rotavirus. It's not where they vomit and then they're like, oh, I feel sick, I think I'm gonna vomit again. No, these are people that stay on the bathroom hugging the toilet for 2 days. Like there's no leaving, right? And the diarrhea is just water, and it doesn't really respond well to Lomotil or Imodium, or it's this is so difficult, I promise. So there are many factors that can affect withdrawal from long acting medications. The amount, how long you've been doing it, are there psychiatric conditions going along with this? Do you have access to workout equipment? Are you too sick to work out? Because being able to get some exercise during the early phases can sort of calm some of the more difficult withdrawal symptoms by causing your body to release its own endorphins. That can sometimes help. Um, with long acting, and here's the key, with long acting opiates, you are nearly required to have a drug taper. There's got to be, it is impossible and it is very dangerous to go cold turkey off of a medication like methadone or Oxycontin or Suboxone. It is a very dangerous prospect. Your blood pressure goes bananas, your heart rate. There's a lot of ways. The opiate withdrawal doesn't technically kill you. Now, withdrawal from alcohol or benzodiazepines, it can technically kill you, be the cause of your death, the withdrawal. Not so with opiates. However, opiate withdrawal, especially from something like Oxycontin, is so difficult on the body physically that if you have underlying health problems like a heart condition, or you've got, you got a little piece of obstruction that's just about to break loose, and then you go into withdrawal, the increased blood pressure could actually make you have a large blood clot, and that could cause a heart attack or a vascular event. So it is a dangerous prospect. And for those people that are taking things like Oxycontin, methadone, to go cold turkey can be dangerous. And so did Kouri Richins, was she given the luxury of a detox? Was she given the luxury of a drug taper? Now, I don't believe that a jail, like a county jail, I don't think I've ever seen, I could be wrong, but I think I'm right about this. For me, my experience, I've never seen a county jail provide an opiate to a prisoner. I have seen them give clonidine, which is like a blood pressure medication. I've seen clonidine. I've seen lofexidine. So there is medical support for people that come into the prison or into the jail, and they go into difficult withdrawal. But I almost wonder, given the family of Kouri Richins, I think she would probably have been provided a medical detox. Um, you'd never get that information. We would never get that info. That's HIPAA protected. We would never know that. But I wonder, and one of the reasons I wonder if they provided, maybe they gave her buprenorphine, morphine, which is like it is it is chemically related to opioids, and it stops some of the withdrawal symptoms. So rather than being actually tapered, where she would be on the same medication but just a smaller dose with longer period of time between dosing, I doubt that they would give her. Um, I really doubt that they would give her OxyContin while she's in jail, but I definitely think they might would give her methadone or something like that, which would help to um, reduce some of her tolerance, right? So that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that she did like a not a technical taper, but that she did a drug managed partial detox to lower her dependence on the drug. And maybe in the 10 days or so before her last court appearance, they went ahead and went down another dose. And so, yeah, she's having nausea, vomiting, and sickness, just not to the full depth that it would be if she were cold turkey. Because really and truly, people go cold turkey off of OxyContin. Oh, it is it's a medical, it requires full-blown hospitalization. I mean, they get so sick. It's very sad. So there's inpatient rehab, there's outpatient rehab. Like I said, they typically go through a period of tapering down. And then once they taper down, they'll move them then to a short acting opiate like hydrocodone. Then they'll move the hydrocodone down to a very low dose. And then finally, they'll take them off of real opiate and give them something small to maintain. Now that would be in private care, where they're out and whatnot. But I really think our timeline is on point for what I'm thinking. I think she's actively using. I think that her emotional lability, attacking her sister-in-law, like, I don't care if he changed his will and she got shut out of the life insurance money, that's fine. It's not natural for a grown woman with children to physically assault her sister-in-law. It's not normal. And from what we heard, she really lost it. Like, men could not get her off of her sister-in-law. So I do kind of think she must have been. I don't know of any other way. What do you guys think in terms of her even knowing someone to go to and say, "Hey, I want to buy fentanyl." Isn't that crazy? How many people would know how to buy fentanyl? I wouldn't even begin to know where to go to find somebody to do that. So, all right. So now I'm looking at the chat. I see Melmac. Oh Lord, my dad took Ambien. He would get up at night and let the geese out of his bedroom. Poor guy. um, I have heard of people doing stuff like that. I'm thrilled if I get 3 hours of sleep. Me too, critters. Oh my God. We're like the great insomniac club of America, aren't we? Hey, Q-tip. They'll give Suboxone or methadone only if you were on it before you went to jail. Thank you for that information, Q-tip. Yeah. But we got to remember, right? I mean, this chick, she Googles, what about prisons for the rich and the famous, right? She wanted a luxury prison. Q-tip. Hey, Skinny Nona. Oh, didn't know that. Q-tip. Didn't a guy kill someone while sleepwalking? Ambien does make people do weird things, Diane. It does. It makes you have dreams, but you're still able to move around, and so people do like chasing geese. Um, People drive their cars. Jules, what about Suboxone? I know the sleepwalking defense has been used. I don't know if he took medications. Um, Her drug dealer was her cleaning lady, so that was easy. I don't think she was an addict, but she might have had a boy toy on the side that was. She is full of secrets we've yet to discover. I'm a little bit curious, DB. Why do you discount the possibility that she might have been using? Hey, Jerry, good to see you. It is crazy, isn't it? It's just totally crazy. Teresa Walton, welcome, my friend. He's I wouldn't know where to buy a pain pill, much less fentanyl. I right? In the beginning of this story, I really didn't think about that. But when I really kind of really focused in on her buying the additional pills after Eric was already dead, and suddenly it just popped in my head, and I thought, wait a minute. How does this woman even know where to buy them? And more important, how in the world do you have the courage to ask your cleaning lady, hey, you know where I can buy some fentanyl? And I believe wasn't there some discussion wasn't there some discussion about her previously buying hydrocodone? I I think I think so, and that the fentanyl came into play when when she was asking for the Michael Jackson stuff. Those drug dealers were ripping her off. She paid a good amount for that. That's what I thought. I thought that the price that they gave her was extraordinary, right? It was like more than $100 a pill. And this would definitely account for the money issues, right? Salty sweet tea. Hey, Kimberlette, welcome. Maybe she was going to kill more people. The sister, maybe. Possibly, Callie. Yeah. Need to research her friendships. Well, apparently, she was from a fairly poor family, and there was something, let me say it this way. There was something that made the mother-in-law so adamant against this marriage that she showed up as Kouri is getting dressed for her wedding. She's standing there in her wedding gown. She shows up. She tells the bridesmaids, get out of the room. They all leave. And she whips out a prenuptial agreement and says, sign this. And Kouri did. I don't know which one is, I don't know what's more shocking, that the mother-in-law does this dance, or that Kouri literally does in fact sign it on the spot. I'm not sure which of those is more shocking. So what we know for sure, though, is that the mother-in-law, I think, planned it to really push push her back against the wall and see, will she have the guts to walk away from the prenup if what she's really after is Eric's money or my family's money. Then she'll never sign this prenup. She'll call the wedding off before she'll sign it. But I think Kouri panicked. And it was very clear this was an ironclad prenup, and Kouri wasn't getting anything. Nothing. And it's almost like she said about nickel and diming and getting her hands on as much as she possibly could while she could. But then I thought about that and I thought, but the accountant was very clear that a lot of the money was accountable, that like they could find it. But there was a great deal of money that they didn't really know what she did with it. And she was the big no-no. She was mixing her personal finances with this business stuff. So she created a terrible mess. She created a horrible mess. And it was as if she was burning every bridge imaginable. It's like she had no comprehension to the real timeline, evidence. She did it in a way that Eric was able to see exactly what she was doing, and eventually it done her in. Right? And so, why would she get the children's life insurance? Because Eric's sister was afraid that the children's life insurance, coupled with the fact that she bought additional fentanyl after Eric's death, that perhaps she was planning to kill one of the kids. Now, I hope to God that wasn't the case, but it's hard to come up with another explanation because she did, in fact, get the life insurance policies for these children. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm just so horrified at the thought that she would do that, and maybe that's why it suddenly popped in my head. No, she's an addict. Look at her history. Look at her behaviors. Look at how much the mother-in-law was freaked out that she jumped up and did something that really would probably make Eric furious, right? If he's excited, he's in love, he thinks he's got this wonderful young woman, and mom shows up with a prenup and says, here, sign or you're not marrying him. Don't you think Eric would get angry? I know my son would, but mom didn't care. I mean, she sounds like a woman who was trying to protect her son or protect the family, fortune. Buying the life insurance for the children. And what do we know, Kim, that Chris Watts did? Chris Watts took out life insurance on Bella and Cece. Remember that? It's terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Hey, Honey K, welcome. Hey, Celestial. Did you see Iris Eaton denied? It was amazing, Celestial. I was watching and I was laughing so hard when somebody changed their name to Barry Killed Suzanne. and the avatar was wonderful, wasn't it? I kind of thought the avatar looked a little bit like Iris. What'd you think, Celestial? I think her mother-in-law was testing Kouri to see if she was trying to marry Chris for money. Maybe Marie, I would agree with that. And the prenup was ironclad. It was a hard line prenup with no kind of benefit of marriage. It's what you have today. That's all you're ever going to have. Unless Eric dies. And if Eric dies, then you take over what would have been his portion of everything. I think she was a user of drugs. She wouldn't do that to her kids. It would be too obvious. Yeah, and the opiate use would explain a lot. wouldn't it? Number one, it would explain how she was such a goober and didn't seem to have any kind of recognition that she left a trail of clues. That was number one. Number two, um, it it's like her brain did not have any awareness for if then contingencies. If I kill Eric, then they won't recognize if I also kill the kids. Her problem solving was upside down. Hey, I'm sorry, hold on. Sorry, the dogs are barking at something outside. She was dumb. She wouldn't poison her kids after she was under suspicion, unless she's on drugs, Marie. I thought about that too, Teresa Walton. I would agree. Sadly, that prenup may have been the motive, right? That if there had not been a a prenup, that maybe she wouldn't have gone to the look. I'm telling y'all, her brain was not right. When go back and listen to the accountant, the forensic accountant that was on the stand, go back and listen to how she described the money movements that this woman made. Her brain was not working right. You do not go to a hard money lender and treat it like it's a casual loan from a bank. Their interest rates can be as high as 31%. It's like let's say she goes to hard money lender and says, I need $300,000 as a bridge loan. I'll pay you back in a month, in 4 weeks. They're going to say, of course, here you go. Of course, backed by the Richins name and reputation. They're going to give her that $300,000, and then they're going to tack on an additional $100,000 because the interest rate's 30%. That's after only keeping the money for 1 month, y'all. Those are the implications for that hard money lender scenario. It's if you are forced to go to hard money lender, you make sure you can pay half of what you need, and then you only get half of what you actually need, because the interest rate is going to destroy you. And they're pretty unforgiving when they come for their money. These are people, they're sitting on a pile of cash, and all they can tell is in 4 weeks, I will have made $100,000 off of this deal. And if you don't if you don't bring that whole 400,000 to me, there's going to be hell to pay. Things are going to get real ugly real fast. And there's not going to be any kind of leniency. I'm not going to have any empathy for you. It's a bad deal to use hard money. It really is. Unless you're a naturally wealthy person. Maybe you don't want to get money out of a 401, or you don't want to get money out of your business. All you need is 3 weeks of operating cost. Well, then you can do it and make sure you get it paid off as quickly as absolutely. This is like a payday loan. Have y'all heard of that? A payday loan where you go in, your paycheck is usually, I don't know, $1,000. You go in and borrow $100, but then you have to pay back $200. It's very punitive to use these hard money. They are used. They do help with business, but you need to be a really experienced and competent accountant, business entrepreneur, to really know how to use a hard money lender safely. And she didn't just have one. She had many of these loans and kept taking more. This fool was taking out loans to pay off all the other loans, which effectively is 100% interest, right? So yeah, payday loans. That's the financial plan for desperate people, lots of drug addicts, because you can't possibly hope to pay it back. You just can't. And a lot of those payday loans, they'll do things like take your title to your car as collateral, and then suddenly they own a car for $100. It's it is it is terrible. So yeah, it's kind of like modern day loan sharking. Yeah, sure. I think that's probably a pretty good. Explains why she had the locksmith drill the gun safe for the cash Eric had stashed. Yeah, absolutely. She was desperate. The even the house. Again, you got to listen to the forensic accountant. What she owed was more than what she could have ever gotten back from these houses that she had sunk all this money into. Although it didn't all go into the houses, she spent a lot of money on something. I'm really thinking she's using opiates. It also, I'll tell you something else that opiates do. So you remember the Batman movie theater shooter in Aurora, Colorado? He was loaded with hydrocodone. He was filled to the brim with hydrocodone, and the medical people were just shocked that he wasn't dead, but his tolerance was really really high. And during the weeks before he did the shooting, when he was planning it and he was ordering all of his weapons and he was doing everything, booby trapping his apartment, all that, buying hookers, during that period of time, he was using hydrocodone. He was numb. It killed his empathy. And so he was able to follow through with a nightmare scenario. We have a lot of people, a lot of these spree shooters, they use opiates to numb them, and then they can carry it out. I want you to imagine, no matter how much you hate your husband, he's having affairs or whatever, imagine loading up his drink with enough fentanyl to kill a horse. And you're just calm. You're just like, here, honey, celebration time for the multi-million-dollar house that I'll never finish because I don't know what I'm doing, but let's celebrate. Well, he was mad. He didn't want her to do the house. So why is he celebrating? He wasn't happy about that. Um, and so then she goes and crawls in bed with her child, knowing she's just killed her husband. How do you keep from running and grabbing the drink out of his hand, saying, no, 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 don't drink that. I don't know what I was thinking. Well, if she's using opiates, then she's not going to feel afraid. Hey, 317L, she was a gold digging narcissist who poisoned her husband because it was easy. Oh, all eyes on her because she made it look easy. I know someone who has a gambling problem. She's in such denial. It's overwhelming. It's very sad, Martian Planet. Oh, thank you, Marie. You are the best. I am honored to have so many good friends here. We have a really good community. Makes me happy. Can't be around this person very long before I'm asked to buy cigarettes or to hear about some loan that she owes. Yeah, gambling is really sad. All right. So wait a minute. Nebula said, I don't know exactly, but I've heard addicted people can be cured by ibogaine treatment. There must be a way to help people who find themselves in such difficult situations. There's always research. Clonidine is a blood pressure medication, but it does operate and control that particular chemical that acts like amphetamine during withdrawal. And so that's one of the reasons that clonidine is such a good support drug for people in opiate withdrawal. That was an accidental discovery. So there's always these treatments. Ketamine treatment right now is being investigated. A lot of research going on, pilot programs happening, and this is being used primarily for intractable depression. But now they're seeing that it does seem to help with the long-term withdrawal, the cravings and the fatigue that is common up to as much as a year after withdrawal. I think it is just about just 100% necessary. People that have been addicted to opiates, whether long-term or short-term, or short-acting or long-acting, people that have been addicted and they go through a taper and then ultimately detox, every one of these people must work out and have a exercise regime, because it does cause the brain's neurotransmitters to normalize. And so it can really support their withdrawal efforts by controlling cravings, helping them relax. One of the worst things that causes addicts to go back to using their opiate is not being able to relax, not being able to sit still, not being able to get a full night's sleep. Most of them are not seeking intoxication after withdrawal. Most of them are just wanting to feel normal, just be able to just lay down and go to sleep. So it is a very complicated problem, and they do require medical support in order to be successful. So the type of physical discomfort, the compulsion to move, doesn't really seem to be helped by things like benzodiazepines or tranquilizers. In fact, tranquilizers can make it much worse in a paradoxical way. They have used, what all have they used? Well, they've used a lot of things. Clonidine's been helpful. They've used zolpidem. They've used what else? Anti-Parkinson's medications have been a bit effective. Again, same way as clonidine works, controlling the adrenaline that's being released. And so the anti-Parkinson's can be medications can be helpful, but not too much, because then you get paradoxical. So it's very difficult to go through this type of withdrawal in the best of circumstances. And definitely doing it in jail is not the best of circumstances. So I think that she was using, and that because she's who she is and she has the family name and wealth, they probably gave her a brief taper, and then they gave her drug-assisted detox, and going into the courtroom was too early on the 22nd, and she was sick. Not only just vomiting and nauseated, but that she was having the, crying and the mood symptoms. And she had the red, swollen nose and the runny nose and the wet, watery, runny eyes, feeling cold, having cold sweats. I think she was going through all of that, just to a lesser degree than a cold turkey type of thing. An archetype, I mean to say what you wrote lines up with person's overall brand. Who I was writing about. I don't know what you're talking about, Shalimar. Ibogaine, a hallucinogenic compound derived from the roots of a West African shrub, sometimes used as treatment for heroin or cocaine addiction. Imagine sniffing a powder and dropping dead. Whew, it's terrifying. She was addicted to prestige, big houses, cash, and keeping her independent image intact. All right. I'm just reading through all the comments here, y'all. She's Black Widow, point blank. Addicts do need to be the sleep method. This is not used because it's expensive. Marie, I think you're talking about what would be they call it surgery. It's not technically surgery, but they sedate the patient, put them under, then they give them Narcan to knock all of the opiates out of the receptors. It instantly throws them into severe withdrawal, and then they keep them in that state for about 3 to 5 days. And when they wake up, they feel like they have been run over by a Mack truck, lots of body aches and pain. But the worst of the acute withdrawal symptoms is over. And then they're just in this really horrible depression, anxiety, cravings. But I know what you're talking about. It's got a name, and I can't remember the name of it right now. No. They're addicts while they're asleep, Nebulous. Oh, is there any way to help someone with a gambling problem, or do they have to help themselves? Um, as is the case with most drugs, or I guess I should say most addictions, um, they have to admit they have a problem first. And a lot of them, they're in denial. They don't want to believe that they have a problem, even though they, went to a pawn shop and took $500 for their car so they could go gamble some more and earn it back, right? And then they lose the car. I've seen that. I actually saw a lady in Shreveport, Louisiana, in the bathroom who's on the phone crying, telling her husband that she lost the car. It was pretty sad. I got warned last time I gave my friend a birthday gift that she would return it for cash. Yeah, that's so sad, isn't it? It's so sad. Yeah, absolutely. The psilocybin, LSD types of treatments are always being investigated. Ketamine's got a good. It seems to be at least hope. It does have some really good initial. There's a lot of, well, not a lot. That's not true. There are the ketamine treatments are being managed in pain management clinics under a tightly controlled experimental conditions with certain doctors that have had this special training and whatnot, and they're having really good results, surprisingly. So that's interesting. Yes, the microdosing. Yep, absolutely. No, it's sedation, so they do get withdrawal. Yeah, they usually they put them to sleep like surgery, right? Put them to sleep. They give them a high dose of Narcan, and it knocks all of the opiate out of all those receptors, And then the doctors are managing their blood pressure and their heart rate. Um, and they're highly closely monitored for about 3 to 5 days, and then slowly they're allowed to come out of it. Again, they do feel like somebody's beat them with a bat. They're in a lot of physical pain. Um, they're the horrible sickness has passed, but they still have a little bit. It's pretty tough. There have been people that have died with that kind of treatment they were really way too way their bodies had developed extreme tolerance, and so knocking the whole all of the opiates out of the receptors, and their brain was not making it their own endorphins, and it was too much for the body. So, ooh, that's horrible, Sketty Nona. And you do distance from addicts to protect your own resources. Absolutely. Yeah. Jerry, thank you so much for being here. It was wonderful to see you. I appreciate it so much. And I'm glad you enjoyed the live. It's a weird topic, right? But I don't know. I think it's interesting information. I can talk a little bit about what causes opiate withdrawal. I mean, I'm talking about the neurology of it, the chemical reactions and changes that happen. Um, the the brain is a perfect drugstore in its natural state when it's healthy, and then through modern living we set about making it unhealthy by not doing healthy living. We lead sedentary lives, we eat foods that act as chemicals, and then eventually we're not very healthy. So uh, um, endorphins are natural opiates. Our brain actually makes its own opiates when we're healthy, and our brain will release these opiates into the synapses when we are exercising. So if you never exercise, you don't ever get your own natural opioids. So taking a pill is much easier, and our body, we take too much. There's not enough receptors, and eventually our body will react by growing additional opiate receptors. Now, that means we have to take more of the drug to keep those receptors filled. When the receptors are not filled, when there are receptors that are sitting there unused, they begin to create a compulsion saying, uh-oh, we need more opiate. We got to get this animal to go get some more drug. And so it makes you uncomfortable, makes you sick, tries to force you to go get whatever the drug is that you need. So this is all being done in the neurons of the cells that are being affected. So these are the primary cells in the brain, and mostly the opioid receptors involving the chemical dopamine. So Oxycontin will cause your cells to release an excessive amount of dopamine. And dopamine is the addiction drug. It's the drug that makes us feel pleasure. And so you take a pill, your brain releases an increased amount of dopamine, and you feel yummy. You feel good. And that makes you want to go back and take more of that drug. So when a person stops taking the opiate of choice, then there is less dopamine available for the brain. This terrible part of withdrawal that I talked about, where they move all the time, like they can't quit moving, they can't sit still, they can't lay down and relax and go to sleep. They just have this internal compulsion to move that they are powerless against. Well, this is not really about dopamine specifically, but it's about a, a chemical reaction that occurs in a part of the brain called locus ceruleus. And the LC is what is responsible for the production of noradrenaline. And noradrenaline is what creates wakefulness. It causes us to breathe. It keeps our blood pressure up. It makes us alert. So when things go wrong in the locus coeruleus, then we can have a lot of problems like drowsiness. It can cause our blood pressure to get very low, can slow our respiration. And opioids do this. Opioids stop the locus ceruleus from it doing its job, which is the adrenaline activity. Right? Now, if you don't, two problems here. If you are putting opiates into your body, your brain stops making its own opioids. That's the first problem. Your body's no longer making its own endorphins. That's number one. The second part is the adrenaline, right? The amphetamine-like creation. If you are not taking in the external opioids, then the locus ceruleus is going to go crazy and increase the production of noradrenaline, or what feels like amphetamine. So it's a double-edged sword, and it kicks your butt. Again, when you're taking the opioid, it suppresses the coeruleus, which is what gives us noradrenaline. And so by taking opioids, you don't have that amphetamine effect. And that means that you get sleepy. You may stop breathing, or your blood pressure may just bottom out to nothing. If the person no longer has opiates available and their brain is not making natural opiates, well, the LC, the locus coeruleus, it goes crazy. Now the adrenergic activity is enhanced. And as levels of noradrenaline just course through the body, it causes a compulsion to move, jitters, anxiety, muscle cramps, diarrhea, vomiting, yawning, sneezing, a hypersexual sex drive or sexual response. It's kind of crazy. It's very uncomfortable. And it's, in many ways, it's like you're on high doses of amphetamine. The withdrawal from opiates is experienced as overdose of amphetamine. So depending on the person's weight, how often it's been used, that the avenue of ingestion is the person taking a pill and it's going through the digestive system. Is the person snorting it? Are they shooting it in their arm? Like, how are they getting it? The effects of suppressing the amphetamine or adrenaline-like response is different, right? So that too, I didn't mention that earlier, but rate of admission or avenue of admission can also affect withdrawal onset, and also how long you had that effect. So as the physical effects of noradrenaline affect the body, the people experience congestion and runny nose, really runny eyes, dilated pupils. Their vision will get blurry, very rapid heartbeat, very high blood pressure, shivering and goosebumps, anorexia, they're not able to eat, severe diarrhea, severe vomiting, cramping, not just I mean you get abdominal cramps too, but a lot of people have trouble with like Charlie horses, their muscles are cramping. All of this is happening because of the noradrenaline that is the result of the locus coeruleus. And it takes that long, it can take up to 96 to 120 hours for the brain to finally go, okay, I'll make my own opiates. Give me a break here. And then your body begins to produce its own endorphins. And when your body kicks in and starts making natural endorphins, your acute withdrawal symptoms go away. The mood changes last a long time, up to a year. Anxiety, depression, insomnia. Sometimes people feel like they're never going to get back to a normal night's sleep, and anger and agitation. So the mood part of this, it can be a much bigger burden over the length of a year or so, which is one of the reasons that people, you know, start using again because they just want to feel normal, just want to feel relaxed and be able to sleep. Early withdrawal symptoms have been described like flu-like symptoms. You get a lot of mental fogginess, there's sleep, mood changes, and then the later period can even become quite violent with the vomiting and the compulsion to move. The withdrawal and sadness turns into anger and frustration. And so, you got about 2 or 3 weeks of living hell if it's a short acting opiate. But again, some of the longer acting, yeah, it could be a couple of months where you're actually really sick, and then you could be in protracted withdrawal for a year or more. Worst symptoms typically will pass within a few weeks to a few months. And then, of course, the less severe side effects, mostly compulsions and cravings for use. Oh, cravings can last 3, 4, 5 years. People have to learn how to accept the compulsions and cravings and just say, I'm going to want them, but I can never get them. It's hard to do. So if you ever meet someone who says, well, I'm 6 months clean of opiates, or I've been off opiates 3 years, you have met a, just a beast. You are in the presence of greatness, someone that can go through acute withdrawals and then learn to tolerate and manage protracted withdrawal state. This is a person who deserves a handshake and a congratulations. You are a very, very strong person, right? It is terrible, 317L. And yes, many people will tell you, if I'd known what the withdrawal problem was going to be, I don't think I ever would have used. It's pretty uncomfortable. All right. I hope this was at least informative. Did you guys feel like it was worthwhile? If you thought the live was worthwhile and maybe you learned something that you had forgotten or never knew about, put a 1. But if you just enjoyed being here with friends, chit-chatting, that's important too, right? You can get the drink made. It carbonates any type of juice. Off topic, but did you delete the live of the lady that did the mukbangs from the other day? You know what I ended up doing, Angel? I ended up setting it to private because there was a part of it that I wanted to take out. It's a comment someone made that was really kind of aggressive toward foodie beauty. And so I took it down, and I just need to go in there and add it back. I'll put it back up, Angel. I'm not keeping it on private for any reason. Just that my work schedule's been really busy. Dr. Gabor Mate says it's possible for children to use up their dopamine and serotonin early in childhood due to stress. This causes drug addiction to make them feel normal by replacing them. Very, very interesting, DB, and really great research to read. Yes, about the how early trauma for children actually changes their brain. The way they experience emotion is different than people that did not have trauma in childhood. Thank you for being here, Kim. I really, really enjoyed having you here. Hey, Donna. I'm glad you were here too, Honey K. It's wonderful to see everybody again. Lots of oldies, the goodies, people from years ago, right? Hey, Salty Sweetie. Good idea on delicate brain chemistry. We need to respect it. Absolutely, 317. Yeah. That you can so effectively use sunshine, walking, or weightlifting, but walking is really probably research wise. Walking is highly effective. Sunshine, walking, and then things like dark chocolate, hot bath to treat depression or anxiety, and it be more effective than taking antidepressants. And again, you got to realize the brain is a perfect drugstore. It has everything that we need. If we live healthy, it continues to be a great drugstore. If we live unhealthy, then it's not as efficient, and we don't get the benefits. So when you start walking, when you make sure you get sunshine every day on your bare skin, when you learn how to manipulate levels of serotonin and dopamine with temperature of water, dark chocolate, when you really get devoted to knowledge about the neurochemistry of mood, you can treat your mood symptoms without pharmaceuticals. ADHD drugs are not good for children. Research on these drugs prove these are not effective for children. Agreed, Marie. And I am telling you, the best treatment for ADHD is new habits that establish a daily lifestyle that is predictable and consistent. Developing these new habits, this is the most effective treatment for ADHD. And then using mindfulness skills, diaphragmatic breathing, to control the physical movement. Again, and those compulsions, like in ADHD, are very similar to what's happening in opioid withdrawal. That the LC is overactive, and it ends up being too much noradrenaline in the body. And so you just teach kids how to reduce their natural adrenaline, and then they feel better and they don't have impulsivity. But it's a lot more work to come to therapy and then do your homework outside of therapy. That is a lot more work than going and taking a pill. But pills come with a cost, right? It's a lot different. And the using exercise, breathing processes, exposure to sunshine, those are more natural. They put the body in a natural state, and it's more effective. The brain in a healthy state is the perfect drugstore. But man, you can really fight with people not wanting to walk 20 minutes. They would rather take very serious drugs than just take a 20-minute walk in the morning and the afternoon. It's very it's very perplexing. Yeah, learning relaxation skills of any type is only a small component to overall treatment. Well, no, Marie, I am reimbursed by health insurance. Um and the people I work with always try to do the natural stuff, the healthy behaviors, uh, using changing their daily habits, and recording calendars and timelines. That all of that is fully reimbursable if you go to a licensed psychologist. Um, it is true. Uh, so family therapists too file insurance, but unless you can find a therapist who has developed a specialty in ADHD, they may not have they may not have the knowledge related to the neurochemistry of ADHD or depression anxiety. So you're probably better off to try to find a licensed psychologist to work with, but there are master's level therapists who have taken the additional training specific to the neurochemistry, and they're amazing. They do great work. But you're looking for someone that understands about the chemicals in the brain and how you can manipulate those chemicals through exercise and movement and certain foods. Oh, and Callie, you would not believe how great mindfulness task um, can help kids. I mean, it can help lots of people, but little kids do really well. And teaching them how to breathe from their stomach, like belly breathing, it's amazing to watch them when they get lots of good oxygen and they just calm. You just watch their bodies calm down. Yeah, kids need to, we all need to learn how to be mindful. Be aware of what you're doing right now, this second. We either live in the past or we live in the future. And then we wonder why we are so overwhelmed with anxiety in the here and now. I have a sunny spot in my house I sit in during the winter. Yes. Um, vitamin uh, Vitamin D is a big part of pain management. It is a big part. It's implicated in depression and anxiety. And it is very difficult to get vitamin D from supplements, from pills. But roll your sleeves up, go sit out in the sun 20 minutes a day, and in 2 3 weeks you'll feel wonderful. There you go, DB. That's the hard part, isn't it? Yeah, we're all sedentary. My mom is a therapist, and most do not get therapists that cost more than drug treatment. Drug treatment is cheaper. There you go, Marie. You said it. Absolutely. That's right. You go to your general practitioner one time, you get your prescription. You what is it? $5 to go pick up your prescription, $5 a month, right? And our outcome research, Marie, your mom probably has talked about this. The outcome research, we know that yes, medication alone can work. Um, psychotherapy can work, but when you pair psychotherapy with the medication, you get more relief sooner, and you reduce the possibility of a relapse in your future. So even if you're taking the medication, find you a therapist that you work well with, and learn a new way of living, that you don't have to deal with these mood problems. People, we don't have to suffer. We've been this nation, this kind of westernized culture of Europe and Canada and whatnot, we have been accepting for too long, accepting of anxiety and depression problems. We don't have to live with them, but we do have to accept that our bodies know how to be healthy, but it requires us to cooperate. And we have to help our bodies be healthy so our brain can reward us with a clear mind and a healthy mood. I did not know that, Cali Connect, about the mushrooms. Interesting. Very interesting. Dogs and cats make their own vitamin C. Is that why I've never seen one peeling an orange? Or it could be the taste. That orange peel is nasty. All right. All right, y'all. I got to work tomorrow. I know. I'm so ready to retire. I'm so ready to be an old lady and retire. You guys, thank y'all for being here. I appreciate it so much. Just we'll keep following along with Kouri Richins, and it's a very sad case. She is quite tragic herself, even though, yes, I agree, she's evil. I'm glad her children are safe, and that they are with Eric's sister. But it's gonna be interesting to watch her path as she goes through this. There's got to be a connection between Mormon women twisting off and trying to kill their husbands. There's got to be a research project in there somewhere, right? It can't be all a coincidence. I quit believing in coincidences when I started following true crime. Y'all have a good night's sleep. Thank you for being here. Please hit the thumbs up. Please subscribe if you haven't. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Good night.